this video, we're gonna go step by step how to edit stock clips using Final Cut Pro. How to edit short videos, anywhere from 5 seconds to 30 seconds. How to process them and export them ready to upload to stock agencies or for whatever other project you might have. All right, let's do a screen record here and let's start right away because this is gonna be a little bit longer video, so there's gonna be timestamps. If you feel free to jump back and forth. If you don't need help with this, you can go over there. But let's get to it because it is gonna be a little bit longer. Step one, once you got your footage, you wanna go into Final Cut Pro and open a new library. This is where all that footage is gonna be organized into this library. If you look at mine, I have two. I have the stock footage basics that I started last week, the video I made last week. And I also have Circles Florence 2024. I was out with Circles in the Sand, and this is the latest library I have here. This is how I keep things organized. So once you have a library and you import all your footage with Final Cut is easy. I have an external card reader. All I do is put my card in there and it just pops up the question, you want to import? And I say yes, so I import everything to that library. And I also have it broken down into sections. So you see the drone footage, GoPro, GoPro 9, R5. So every footage is in a different folder here. That way I keep things organized. All right, now once you have your footage imported, Final Cut takes a long time to process. So I let that process. You can see that there's different projects on my screen, and all of this are the videos I made. So every week I make 4 videos. I'm gonna go to File, New Project. And this one here is where I'm gonna choose the video output based on the video input. Everything I filmed, for the most part, was 24 frames a second. That's how I wanna export the video. So I'm gonna choose this in 4K, 4096 by 2160, which is what my camera does. Apple ProRes 422, let's go to 422 HQ for stock, 24 frames a second, and I'm gonna title it Stock Clips. And that's that, simple. New, now that's gonna open a new project, a new timeline, where I can drag and drop all those videos and process them individually. All right, now we have a completely clear timeline. You can see it here at the bottom. Now I'm gonna go back to where my shots are, where my clips are. So I'm gonna find here the different clips that I did that I thought would be good for stock. Now again, because I filmed the whole YouTube video, it's gonna take me a minute here to find it, but here's one where I just walk past the camera and turn around. So just walking through the forest, that's 11. If you see it here in your library, all your footage, it's gonna tell you that it's 4K, 24 frames a second. When I drag that to the timeline, the first thing I do when I have it here is just mute it. Just drop the volume all the way at 0. There's nothing there anymore, don't have to worry about it. The next thing you'll notice is that the footage is flat. There's no color, there's nothing. That's because I film in Canon Log 3. That is Canon's raw video. So there's Log 2, Log 3, there's Canon C-Log, whatever. There's a lot of different options you have. Even drones have this too. So by filming in Log 3, it gives me a little bit more dynamic range and more control when I'm editing or processing this footage. But now I have to add contrast, adjust the highlights, adjust everything else. I'm gonna keep it here basic. Usually you can see the highlights here. I'm just gonna bring them up. Then I'm gonna bring a little bit of shadow or the darks, the mid-tones and shadows. You can see how it starts to add some contrast. I don't want it too much because then it's gonna be, the blacks are gonna be too black and the whites are gonna be too bright. A little bit of contrast goes a long way, but it's kind of muted. So let's add saturation. And you see just adding the mid-tones and a little bit of the highlights, what a difference it made in the footage. Even adding in the shadows like that, that looks a lot better, but I can see that the highlights a little blown out. I'm gonna bring down the highlights and maybe bring up the midtones. And now this is whatever you prefer, what looks good in your screen is what you're gonna end up with. If you need more saturation, if you wanna adjust the colors, you can also do that here in the color board. You can make it, a little bit, drop the global, the reds, the orange. This could be very technical. I just play with it until it looks good. It actually looks fairly good natural at a camera because I selected the white balance that was there. But this is the next step. It's just adjusting all of those exposure and your saturation. Then you can play the footage, it looks good. Now, if you need to adjust your white balance, you can go to what's called the color wheel. So we started here in the color board. That's what gives us all of this contrast and everything. But if you want color wheels to change white balance, you can see down here it has the temperature and the tint. So you can adjust if your white balance is off. But in this case, I selected it on camera, so it was good to begin with. I don't need to adjust it for this particular video. I'll find another one where I do. We need to trim it. I don't want a lot of dead space. So in this case, it's perfect. You can see that just by dragging back and forth, I can trim the clip. That's how easy it is. You just drag on the timeline, you just drag back and forth as far as you want to go. It's 11 seconds right now of me just walking through the forest with an orange jacket. So just because I'm gonna make it 11:11, I think that sounds better. Now, because every video I did in the forest was very similar, and all the colors and everything else was very similar, the camera had the same settings, lighting was the same, I'm gonna save this as a preset, so then I can just drag and drop and I don't have to worry about this every single time I'm editing a video. So I just go here to save preset, save effect preset. Here I'm gonna save it in the folder of custom, and I'm gonna say forest green as a name, and I'm gonna select the color board and color wheels. Even though I didn't do anything with the color wheels, I'm gonna save them so that I don't have to open a new one in the next video if I have to modify it. Now you can see that you can also change your position, your scale, your rotation, your crop. You can save all of this if you want to, but every time you apply that preset, you're gonna apply all those changes. So I'm only keeping it to the color board and the color wheels. That's the color adjustment and the contrast. And stretch to fit. This means that if your clip is longer than 11:11, it's also gonna apply it to the complete clip. Otherwise, it's only gonna go to the 11 seconds. So I'm just gonna hit save, and now I can just drag and drop that onto the other clips. Makes life a little bit easier. Then I might have a few adjustments. That's why I don't use presets, Lightroom presets or anything like that. They're designed for one particular photo, and it's a great place to start, but you still need adjustments. Something where it was filmed the same day with the same lighting, with the same camera settings, it is gonna help a little bit. Okay, now here's my forest green and my custom effects. Now that we have that saved and the video is ready to export, we do that. Now when I export videos for YouTube, I use Apple devices 4K. This is M4V, I believe it is the format, and it's extremely small. For stock, that's not acceptable. I made a video a few weeks ago on all the formats that are accepted for stock, so go ahead and watch that one if you want to learn a little bit more about the technical aspects. But for now, I'm gonna go to export file as default. This goes as a computer. Now here, it gives me the options to add tags, and I think you can, but every time I do that here, none of the agencies accept it. I think only one of them can read this, so I don't use this for tags. I use MStalker Studio, and I'll be making a video, hopefully next week, on how to upload and keyword and do everything with Studio, which is something I've been using for 6 months now. You can change the title, the description, and let's do that here. Man walking through a forest wearing a bright orange jacket. So that's that, and then I can also do that for the title. Copy and paste. The tags, like I said, I'm not gonna do those here because I'm gonna do that in MStalker Studio when I'm uploading. The settings, this is what's important here. You wanna export this for a computer, and you also wanna select the H.264 better, which is great. That's how we wanna export this. Make sure the resolution is what you want, which in this case is the way it was filmed, 4096 by 2160. And action opening, whatever, that's fine. This is gonna be an MP4 file. You can see that right here. if you want to do MOV, I know some agencies upload only in MOV, like Alamy. I don't upload my videos to Alamy, so I don't worry about this. The main reason is because it takes way too long, but you can change that by doing this video only. And now you can see that it's an MOV, it's a 1 gigabyte video, and it's only 11 seconds. So I don't want to do that. That takes way too much storage and upload speed. See, now it's down to a tenth or less than a tenth of the space. And that's because it's an MP4. So I'm only going to upload this to the agencies that accept MP4s. Once you're here, then you just click next, export, and ready to go with the new video. See, here it is. It's ready to be uploaded to this stock agency. So I'm just going to keep exporting to a folder. And then when I have 10, 15, 20, then I can upload a bunch of videos. Now, this was an example of a video that was captured in 24 frames a second and exported in 24 frames a second. What happens when I have one that is 60 frames a second and I want to save it in a timeline at 24 frames a second? All right, so I'm going to choose these leaves here. There's a little bit of hand movement, which is fine. That's perfectly okay. See, I just deleted the other one and dragged this one on top. Now, I could even go here to my forest green and apply the preset. You can see that it's not perfect. So it's a little bit bright because one was on me walking in a dark forest. This is looking up at the sky. So I'm just going to bring the exposure down just a little bit, and maybe the color, I'm going to make it a little bit more orange. And you can see how that changed it completely. Now this is still at 60 frames a second. In Final Cut Pro, if I do Command R, it opens the speed. And you can see here it says normal. Now I'm going to go to slow, and 60 frames a second into a 24 frame a second timeline is going to be 40%. If it was 30 frames a second, it's 50%. But it's a little bit slower. So I'm going to choose custom, type in 40, and now that video can be exported in slow-mo as a 24 frame per second timeline, and it's going to play smoothly. You can see there's a little bit of movement from hand holding. Now I go back and do what I did before, just trim it. I'm going to leave it to, I don't know, 10 seconds or so. So I'm going to choose the first 10 seconds. It's moving. I see the sky. Now it's at 6 seconds. I'm going to choose, see, there's a little bit too much movement here, and I don't want to deal with that. That's a little bit much. There we go. As it's getting closer, to cut a clip in Final Cut, use the B, and that gives you scissors. You can cut it right there, and I'll delete the beginning. I'm at 9 seconds from where I cut. And now let's see how it looks. See, I can stretch it. I can go back and forth. As I get closer, the movement gets a little bit more natural. So I'm going to leave it here. That's 8 seconds. That's more than enough. The focus stays. There's no hunting focus. That's perfect. That's a good stock clip. All I did was crop it to 8 seconds. I could probably go to 9 or 10 because there's not, the movement is not that jittery. Maybe I can even go back to 11:11 since I seem to like that number. And it looks fine. The movement's still jittery. It's hand holding with the stabilizer on camera. So there's not a lot of radical, weird movements here. But that's how you slow down video taken in 60 frames a second to a 24 frame a second timeline. If I hit Command R, it shows me that it's 40%. And that's it. Now we hit export. Once it's done rendering and processed, now I can hit export. Again, we go through the same steps. Autumn, leaves, with the blue sky background. Simple. Next. I just got back from a trip to the coast with Circles in the Sand. By the way, their new calendar's out. I know this is not sponsored, but I did all the photos for the calendar. Head on over to sandypathabandoned.com and you can get a little more information on calendars and whatever else they have. But it's a great thing to see, and I love taking photos and videos of this. But here we have, again, another example. By going to the Circles in the Sand library, I'm going to start a new project. And this is just for example, just to give you a different idea. So I'm going to do Circles in the Sand 2024. Remember, this is art, somebody else's artwork. If I sell any of these videos, it's going to have to be an editorial under editorial designation because it's somebody else's work. The drawings, the artwork, maybe some of the details, somebody raking in the sand, generic, that could be a stock clip, which I do have one that's in slow-mo, so that will work pretty well. But anyway, just keep in mind that this is just as an example. So this new project, remember, it's the same dimensions as I did before. It's going to be 4096 by 2160. And also a 4K 24 frames a second. So whatever you choose is what you're going to start, and that's when you have to adjust your video. If I drag and drop this clip here into the sand, you'll see that it fits the page completely. If I use something from my drone, even though it's 23.98 frames a second, it's a little bit slower than 24. It shouldn't be a big difference, so that should be fine. I don't need to worry about that. What I do need to worry about is that when I place it on the timeline, if I place it above the other one, you can see that the edges don't fit. That's because the drone resolution is different than the camera's resolution. Now there's two options here. I can crop the drone footage, which is gonna give me less information, and extend what I had, which is not necessarily the best thing to do, especially using a small sensor like the drone. In this case, to edit drone footage of circles in the sand, I would have to start a new project. So we'll go here to File, New Project, and now I can title this Drone Shots, Stock, and select the right dimensions, the right resolution, which my drone is 3840 by 2160. That's gonna give me a project where I can edit those videos without having those black bars at the edges, because that's gonna get my photos or videos rejected from stock agencies. Okay, now we have this here, 24.98 frames a second, which is how I recorded this with the drone. You can see it here. It's all recorded at that speed. So I also use the raw version of my drone, which is the Cine, whatever it has. It's not as good as Canon C-Log, but you can see that if I apply the forest green, it doesn't really do much. I have another one saved that I use for drone, and you can see that there's more contrast. It still doesn't work because it's a little bit bluer, so we're gonna go back and adjust just like we did before. When I see, if I go too high, I blow up the highlights, so let's go a little bit lower, get some contrast, let me give some color, and I'm also gonna make it a little bit less, a little bit more blue, maybe bring up the highlights. Anyway, you're gonna spend some time making your footage look the best you can to fit in that timeline. So here's a time lapse of people walking. It still has to be editorial because there's artwork. That heart and the hotel and the buildings back there, just the artwork itself is gonna make it editorial. What if I stretch it a little bit, again, Command R, and bring it out, slow it down to, let's say, 80%. It's gonna look choppy, but remember, it's a time lapse, so it's already choppy to begin with. And now if I go here to this circle and click video quality, frame blending, that'll give me like ghostly things. So that's something I could do for stock video. Even though it has to be editorial, it looks pretty cool. When you blend in frames, the people walking, it's just something that you can do to take your footage to another level. People are waiting, they're stopping, they're walking. You can slow it down even more, but just adding that frame blending, you can see how it just adds another level to that clip. And you can totally do that when you're exporting videos for stock. That just, like I said, it just adds a little bit more to that clip. And that's it, guys. So you can see how this could be a lot more time consuming than exporting photos from Lightroom, but videos pay a lot more, so I do recommend you doing video. There's other video editors out there. I've used many. They're all very similar. I'm using Final Cut Pro because it's with Apple and it works with my flow for YouTube videos. It's what I have, so it seems to work with me. I've also used Adobe Premiere, the free version years ago, or the cheap version years ago. I haven't used Premiere Pro in a while. So there's many options out there that we can use to export our videos. But remember, lower the volume, trim it so that it looks good beginning to end. And if you have a different frames per second, make it match the output on your timeline so that the video renders and plays smoothly. You can also start a new timeline with the 60 frames a second or 59.97 frames a second that the video was recorded on, and don't slow it down if you don't want to. I find that slowing it down gives me more freedom. If I only have 3 seconds, I can slow it down to 6, and that's a stock video. If I only have the 3 seconds, it's not gonna be a stock video. So by slowing it down, it gives me a little bit more options, but you don't have to slow everything down if you don't want to. You can do a few where you do and a few where you don't. But anyway, that was it for this video. I hope it wasn't too long. And remember, timestamps at the bottom. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And now I need a drink of water because, wow, that was a lot. The next video is going to be how to upload photos and videos using Stalker Studio, and I'm going to film that right now that I'm here because I've been asked, this video has been requested by a lot of people. So let me stop this screen record and start a new